Hey, and a good Tuesday afternoon to you. Welcome on in to Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganaz St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. I am Joe Roderick, and that's not Mike Claiborne you see on the other side of your screen. That's Bob Ramsey, as Claibs is driving back from spring training. So Rammer stepping in. Claibs is going to join us here in a bit. Rammer, how are you?
I'm good. Lunch with Claibs and Joe. Where's lunch? And what are we having?
I think Claibs is bringing us back something from the Florida area. I think he stopped at a Publix and got us some subs from from there. We'll check in with him in a second. But first, I wanted to start off the show by an announcement that Rammer, you and I, starting on Thursday, are starting a new daily show here on Claibs Online. We're calling it the early birds, and you and I every single day are going to be getting up. We're going to be recapping everything that happened the day before or the night before with the Cardinal game, letting you know what's coming up on the day before. And Rammer, this is right in your wheelhouse because people love when you talk Major League Baseball lineups.
Well, I'm such a lineup nerd, and I'll probably reference this a number of times as we go forward because people will wonder, how in the heck did this happen to this person? Meaning me, my brain. This infatuation with lineups goes back to when I was a little kid and collecting baseball cards. If you don't know, baseball cards are numbered 1 through 750 or however many cards they release that year. Most kids will stack them in the teams that they are, Not only did I do that, I would have my starting lineup, batting order, then my starting rotation, then my bench, left-handed hitters, switch hitters, right-handed hitters, and then my bullpen. And I was doing that when I was a little kid. So maybe it is a form of OCD, but perhaps I overemphasize the meaning of lineups and depth charts and those sorts of things in sports, but it is very, very meaningful to me, and I think it does impact the game, and it certainly helps keep me interested.
I had a board game when I was a kid where it revolved around your baseball cards, and you set your 9, you set your starting 9, you got a DH, like the way baseball should be. And you had your lineup all set up and ready to go, and you would have to roll the dice, and whatever it showed up as, like if you rolled double sixes, if the guy that was up had more than, then you pulled a card. If the guy had more than 20 home runs, he hit a home run, and that's how it went for the game. Or no matter what you rolled, it was always an out, or a guy would steal a base if the year before he had 20 stolen bases, and it was all depending on the stats on the back of the baseball card. Yeah. And God, for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. I wonder if my parents still have it in the basement somewhere. But yeah, you would either stack it, you'd either get an all-star lineup, or you would get one of every team, and you would just sit there and you'd roll the dice and you'd play your baseball game.
We invented, my best friend when I was a little kid, Chris Warnke, who, as an aside, his daughter has been a champion on American Ninja Warrior. Anyway, weird aside, but we invented a game just like that using dice, but we also added playing cards to go with, and combination of dice and what card flipped over decided what happened. And it was one of those fun rainy day pastimes as a kid.
And it very well, could have evolved to what this was, because this had cards that you turned it into. I'm gonna have to dig that out. I feel like my parents have every board game from when we were kids. So yeah, I'm gonna have to see if they have that somewhere, because as you might know, baseball cards are coming back. All kinds of card collecting. Yeah, it's coming back, and it's become quite a market during the past 12 months. That was one thing that picked up in sales were trading cards, and just getting complete sets and selling them on Twitter has been a pretty big business the past year.
My youngest son and I in the last year got into taking all of my old cards and getting them organized. And I have a couple of complete sets from the late 60s, and with another handful, couple of dozen cards that are missing here and there, I think I could end up with 4 complete seasons. So we need to do that once there are more card shows, or how are they doing it now when you're trying to find, let's say, a Dow Maxville 1968 card to complete a set? How are they doing that these days?
There are people that will they'll post a picture of 9 cards and they'll just tweet it out and they'll label each one and they'll say, hey, any card of these 9 is 50 cents. Which one do you want? You'll tell them which one you want. You do the transaction over PayPal or Venmo. They'll mail you the card. Yeah.
We'll probably get it done. The old days of the card shows, I hope that comes back to some degree, because that almost like a flea market kind of atmosphere, and kind of a combination of a flea market and a Comic-Con. And those were really enjoyable days.
Yeah. So we will, we're not sure if we're going to touch base with Claibs or not as the show rolls on, as he's driving back, and the connection from anywhere between, I guess, Nashville and St. Louis is hit and miss, as many people know. But one of the only reasons I was going to have him on or even join us today was to share his stories about Bobby Plager, who passed away last week, and that dominated the headlines in St. Louis, and rightfully so, because Red Shandy's was Mr. Cardinal. Bobby Plager was the original St. Louis Blue. Passing away last week leaves a huge hole in many Blues fans right now. So growing up, Rammer, when did you first see him play, and when did you first meet him?
Gosh, I didn't meet him until I moved back to St. Louis in the late 80s and worked at Channel 11, and we carried Blues hockey. And that's when I got back into Blues activities. And of course, if you're going to be around the Blues, you're going to know Bob Plager. And he's never changed over the decades. He was great. But aware of him, of course. And as a fan, when the team came into existence, and his hip check, I'll just say his hip check is the best hip check in the history of hockey. So if everybody gets one label, that's his, Mr. Hip Check. It was great. And then later on, fully aware when the movie Slapshot came out, the incident in the movie, I don't know if you're familiar with it, where the Hansons go into the stands, taken directly from the Blues and the Flyers. Claibs and I have talked about it at length over the years. Really kind of a seminal moment in NHL hockey, sort of ushered in the goon era of hockey, as Philadelphia tried to match the Blues' toughness, and it escalated league wide for the rest of the 70s. So more than just a wild moment in a movie, in real life, it was seminal in the way we saw hockey change for, 20 years, maybe 25 years.
Three Blues players ended up spending the night in jail because of that fight. Somehow, none of the 3 were named Plager.
Yeah, that's the funny part of the story. How they managed to do that with Bobby hiding while the cops were taking numbers and names, and then he came out and played some more. So that was pretty crazy. That it really fits into the Bob Plager lore beautifully.
Yeah, I had a chance to speak with a few of his former colleagues, teammates, whatever, this past weekend, and those interviews all up on claibsonline.com right now. But talking with Bruce Affleck and talking about what it was like being a rookie, rooming with Bobby Plager, he had some great stories from that, and then ended up having Joel Quenneville on. That's a standalone interview that we have on the website. But the relationship between Bobby and Joel Quenneville over the years, even after Joel left St. Louis and left the Blues, he had some pretty good stories to share about his years knowing him.
Well, anyone that's been around Bob has stories. Might be small little things that mean a lot to a person, a smile, a handshake, a joke, a story. And then there's people that knew him really, really well. And you saw all the testimonials when the Blues appropriately retired his number next to his brother Barkley. And, from the very best that ever graced hockey rinks like Scotty Bowman, to his mentorship to youngsters like Kelly Chase and Tony Twist, who felt so deeply about Bob that they really considered him truly a father figure. So you've got all those people that really knew Bob, and then the casual people, and it always felt like he touched everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be missed, and we'll talk more Blues as we carry on here as we go. Hey, before we get to baseball, Rammer, since you're on with us, I know we'll talk a lot about them here over the next several months here on the website. But I see you're sporting the Ballparks National at the Lake of the Ozarks jacket.
Yeah.
There is that a hat too that you're also wearing as you're
sitting in
your office. So tell the folks you guys just had your first weekend a few weeks ago. Tell the folks listening that aren't familiar about the Ballparks National.
Well, Ballparks National at the Lake of the Ozarks is a youth baseball and softball facility. We currently have 5 fields with expansion coming soon down the line, we hope, but 5 fields that are geared toward 12U baseball, 12U and under, and girls softball of all ages, even college. We've had colleges play here in the late winter when they get their season started, and the weather was really tough, and a lot of fields all over the Midwest, heck, all over the nation, were unplayable, and we were able to get college fast pitch at our facility. So it's a full facility, all AstroTurf. We never rain out. We have a big full kitchen, a full bar on a huge deck that overlooks the fields, and we're open for business. And go to ballparksnational.com, ballparksnational.com, and we have had a couple of sellouts already. We have a few more this summer, but we have a lot of other opportunities that are wide open for people to be on board. And we would suggest, rather than zip in and zip out of your tournaments like so many people do around the country, because most of these events are in the middle of nowhere, come to the Lake of the Ozarks, spend a few extra days, play some baseball, take some vacation, and enjoy the lake. And we'd love to see you at Ballparks National.
All right, it is Tuesday afternoon, so we are about 51 hours, I think, away from the start of the Cardinals season. It's the rosters and everything aren't due for a bit now, but we already know who the 26 will be on the Cardinals this year. And we're not going to get into the lineups every day. We'll give people a reason to tune in to our show Thursday morning and listen to what you think the starting lineup should be for that home opener. But as the roster, the two biggest I think things that stand out from this roster construction that the Cardinals are starting with this year is, first of all, John Nagowski played his way onto this roster. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest one is the fact that Lane Thomas somehow played his way off. For as highly touted as he was, he entered camp in the middle of February as a guy who was competing for that left field spot with Tyler O'Neill. And now not only is that Tyler O'Neill's spot on the team, Lane Thomas is all the way. I mean, he's on the taxi squad to start the season.
Yeah, and I think that people should not get too tied into that sort of gray area group of players. I always remind people in baseball, never fall in love in March or September. Nagowski had the best offensive camp, no doubt about it. Finding spots for him and at bats for him will be difficult. Could he earn his way into a regular corner outfield spot? Gosh, I don't know. I'm not.
They're not giving him the option. They're not giving him the chance. And I mean, they could have easily put him out there in spring training, and they chose not to.
Joe, if I put a team together, you're not playing the outfield. You don't run well enough. Okay, I can play.
You got to hide me somewhere. You got to hide me somewhere to get my bat in the lineup.
Well, we might hide you on the taxi squad. No, what I'm saying is he earned his spot in the spring with his bat. Finding at bats for him is going to be difficult because he's not a natural outfielder. Having said that, archaic reference lost on younger viewers, listeners, Greg Luzinski patrolled, I guess you could say that, patrolled left field for the Philadelphia Phillies for a number of years. Not a natural outfielder, yet he was a great hitter, and the Phillies won championships with him. So where does he end up? I think it's an open question. And if he gets time in the outfield, will he be able to perform well enough to keep his bat there? That's A. B, if you do that and he stops hitting, then the question goes away because he's got a hit to play.
Well, one of the interesting things about this season, as opposed to all seasons in the past, is you could sit here and you could say, you know what, like, we want Nogowski to get the reps at AAA. We want him to start every day. We want him to still get at bats. Right now, AAA isn't set to start till May. So you're looking, I mean, he would either be in Sauget taking at bats every day, or he could be on the team where he's going to still have batting practice. And then you call on him late in the game for that. And I think that's one of the reasons why he made the team this year, as opposed to might not have any other regular year, because there's nowhere else for him to go get regular reps. He's going to get the exact same amount of reps as if he was a Cardinal or if he was a Sauget Redbird or whatever they're going to call that team there.
And to play into one of your favorite topics, if the National League had the DH, he'd probably be in the starting lineup every day until he didn't hit.
Right.
And DH.
Right. He and probably Matt Carpenter would be splitting those at bats, which brings me to Matt Carpenter. I don't think there was any, as spring training went on, and he wasn't getting traded, you knew they weren't going to cut him. You don't cut guys that make $18 million. You don't just release them and let them go on their way. I couldn't tell you the last guy that's even happened to where they just decided to cut ties with it completely. I was a little surprised, and maybe it's to not embarrass him, but if you saw the press release that the Cardinals announced where they said who was making the roster and they had the final 3-4 pitchers and they put their bench on there with Sosa and Williams and Nogowski, I was really surprised they didn't add Carpenter's name onto that press release just to kind of say, hey, he is going to be on the team, even though at the time of the press release, he had one hit in spring training.
Right.
I mean, that's just not to embarrass a veteran. It has to be.
There's a number of things going on there. One is loyalty. Two is contract. And I think that to take his job was going to be very, very difficult for anybody. And he's going to get an opportunity to still contribute to the team. And you saw the reaction when he did get that hit from his teammates. His teammates were really pulling for him to be able to, heck, this could be his final year in the big leagues. The great story would be if he could find himself a way to hit coming off the bench and maybe grow into a full-time pinch hitter, bench roll guy, and maybe a DH somewhere in his career, continue a few more years in St. Louis or somewhere else. Might be wishful thinking. His career is has severely trended downward in the last 2 years, calendar years. So, but he's been a good Cardinal, and because of the contract, it's easier to be loyal, right? We got to be honest. If not cynical, we got to at least be honest. His contract helps the Cardinals be loyal, and we'll see how it goes. In the end, performance, whether it's Nogowski, whether it's Carpenter, whether it's Williams or Dean or any of these guys, performance has to be the guy. And you say, so it's now the middle of April and the guy's 0 for 10. Let's get rid of him. John Mozeliak's MO is stay the course, be calm. And then as we start to get into June, Okay, what's working, what's not working. Patience has been a real forte for John Mozeliak. He is not a fantasy player where after 1 week, if your guy is not performing, you dump him and go find another guy and put him in and just churn the roster. By the way, for you fantasy players, I don't believe churning the roster is a way to win in fantasy baseball, and it's clearly not a way to win in real life. So John Mozeliak's patience is truly a virtue for him. And let's see how players perform over the next 2 months. And then those who perform will find a spot. Those who don't have a background and who have as water seeps to its own level, a guy who's a career 220 hitter, given enough at bats, will probably hit 220. And then guys who surpass where they've been in the past, they're going to get their opportunities and a chance to play. Who does that? I don't know. I think Nagowski is a great story. If Carpenter can hit, he's a great story. But remember, some of these guys are on the verge. Nagowski is one of them. He's not a prospect anymore, Joe. He's not.
No.
He needs to get at bats in AAA. Probably not. If he's not making the team, you probably don't keep him around, unless as a deep insurance policy for injury to Goldschmidt. If God forbid, but having a good insurance policy is smart. So if this guy ends up at AAA, it's not because he's a prospect who we want to develop and get at bats. It's because he's there to be an insurance policy.
And you remember a few years ago, there was a guy that comes to mind, a guy who had been in the minors forever, had a great spring and came up. Remember the name Jeremy Hazelbaker? And he came on and he had one hell of a first half of the year, and then the magic went away, and he saw less and less.
Joe, water seeps to its own level. Ask anybody with a cracked basement.
Yeah, so but he cared. Hey, you know what? He had some great games. He had some memorable moments, and might have won the team a few games that year. And that's all you could ask for, because there are so many times. I mean, how many times will that bullpen cost you games in April? So it's always nice to have those, have those stars that are going to win you some of those games in April to get you, to get you where you need to be by the time September rolls around.
As my basketball broadcast partner, Earl Austin Jr. would say, milk it till it moves. The guy's hot, ride him. When he cools off, sit down for a while. We'll find another guy. Milk it till it moves.
Absolutely. So Lane Thomas is going to start on the taxi squad. There's 5 guys that'll start on that taxi squad. And also, too, I don't know if you saw this or if people were aware of this, that the team has secured some of the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. And we're going to have the opportunity to get those today in Cincinnati. Give them a chance to give them 2 days or so if there were any kind of side effects to that, so that the Cardinals that want them will be able to be vaccinated today in Cincinnati. So hopefully that starts to open up a few more things.
I hope we all get vaccinated.
Yeah. So there. Then, by the way, the rest of you mentioned you mentioned some of what was it? The players being called up, or the fantasy baseball. I just got to say, I had my one and only draft last night, and I went and I picked up a young pitcher from the Marlins named Sixto Sanchez, who's a big strikeout pitcher, had a really good showing for them in his rookie year last year. And the team's going to start him off in AAA or start him off at their developmental camp. So I had thought he was going to at least be the Marlins number 3 pitcher, and I get bit in the ass. And now he's just going to be hanging out with me for that. Another one, too. You're at as much time as you spent in the Ozarks, they're near, Royals country and Cardinals country, split down the middle. One name that I'm looking forward to watching this year, whenever he gets called up, is Bobby Witt Jr. Yeah,
he has lit up social media and those covering baseball. He appears to be a can't miss player.
Yeah, so I have him just hiding on I have him just stored away until the Royals decide that they want to start paying him big league money and start that clock on him. So I'm glad we don't have that. that, I know we sat for so long and waited for that moment to come with Dylan Carlson over the past, year or two, wondering when that clock was going to start. And now he's just full on. He's your everyday outfielder, and he's your number one outfielder right now. I'm glad we don't have to go through that this year with the Cardinals, because Gorman and Libator are still about a year away from being, those guys.
Right. It's funny when you talk about fantasy baseball too. We had a league that went, 15 years, same group of guys. And what I won a few titles, and you got to have offense, and then there's enough pitching around if you're smart. One of my league mates always said my forte was cobbling together a pitching staff, and in fantasy, I think you can do that. And it translates reality with the Cardinals. It looks like right now, despite all the arms we thought they had last winter, they're kind of cobbling together a starting rotation. I'm I'm more than a little concerned that the starting rotation is going to be as good as advertised.
Hey, we'll have plenty of baseball talk on Claibs Online all season long. As I mentioned before, Rammer and I starting the Early Birds podcast on Thursday. So it'll be weekdays, Monday through Friday. It should be available to download by 9 or 10 a.m. each and every day. So be looking for that. And along with, Claibs is on any of his interviews he does at the ballpark. And also this week, we'll have the introduction of the Keith Costas podcast, as Claibs will be joined by Keith Costas of the MLB Network each and every week, talking baseball from all around, not only Cardinals, but all around Major League Baseball. So we'll add Keith's voice to everything that we're doing here on Claibs Online. We have a lot of other stuff to talk about, but first, a short break from Ameren.
Hey, Matt Minster here with my trusty assistant. Sorry?
I'm Suzanne, the Magnificent, and this is my trusty assistant, Matt.
That's right. And we're here with easy tips that can save you energy and money.
Like magic.
Adjusting your thermostat 7 to 10 degrees for 8 hours a day can save you up to 10% a year. And a smart thermostat can change the temperature automatically.
Abra Adjusto.
Impressive.
There's more where that came from.
LED light bulbs use up to 80% less energy and can last 25 times longer than regular light bulbs.
Ooh. Ah.
And using timed outlets can help you save even more energy.
Tickety-tockety-two.
Or try Smart Plug. Now these cool devices sync with your smartphone so that you can manage your energy
Ta-da!
with the touch of a finger. Hey, you're pretty good at that.
Thanks. Want to see another trick?
Of course.
Energy savings made easy.
Find more tips at AmerenIllinois.com/savings made easy.
Back here on lunch with Claibs and Joe, Bob Ramsey filling in for Mike Claiborne, who's making his way back from Jupiter, Florida for the start of the games. And we've talked with Claibs about it a few times. They will once again not be on the road for the road games. They'll be doing the games, calling them from Busch Stadium, home and road, doing it the same way they did all of last year as they wait for more and more things to open up and hopefully get on the road as the season goes on. Speaking of being calling games from the studios, Rammer, you had to do that quite a bit for the Billikens games this year. Did you go down to Dallas for the NIT, or did you call those from the studio?
No, our plan was, had the Billikens got to the second round, we would have gone to Frisco, Texas then, but fortunately they lost and we didn't. So we did not do one road game in person this year.
How difficult was that for you guys to do that?
Well, relative to real life problems, I don't want to complain about it. I'll just say it was the toughest experience of a broadcast career. It was really hard.
Did any officials text you throughout the season to let you know that they missed you?
No, that did not happen. It did not happen.
Have you followed much of? I mean, so Billikens get eliminated. I know that's your. I mean, that is your life right there is Billikens basketball. But even though they made the NIT, how closely do you follow March Madness, even when they don't make it?
Well, I try to. In fact, my wife is a huge fan, and it's kind of one of our things we do when we can. This year on the weekends, I've had to sneak into the office here while we've had tournaments going on at Ballpark National and catch them as I can. The coverage has been great, and I've really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, March Madness, because of March Madness and spring training and the hockey season on normal years winding down, getting ready for postseason, I call it one of the high holy months for sports. For me, it's all about October and March.
And well, next weekend you have the Final Four games next weekend plus the Masters. So the Masters starts this weekend,
and that kind of culminates the high holy days.
Yeah. So this year, I saw it earlier today. Richard Deitch posted that these are some of the highest rated March Madness games that we've seen in, I think it's like 15, 20 years. And I wonder how much of that, because if you've watched any of the games, you know how the schedules have worked so far this year, that instead of the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that they've changed, that all the tournament schedule has changed to where it's wrapping around and going into Monday and Tuesday now this year. In fact, we still have 2 more games today to decide that. And plus, they also did the standalone. So for the Sweet 16, it was 4 games, one after the other, just none of them overlapped this year. So you had a full day of basketball watching on the weekends.
Yeah, and I think probably some deeper analysis to compare, because isn't it true that through the summer and into the fall, game ratings were down, if I recall a little bit. I think we all expected them to go through the roof, and that didn't necessarily happen. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. So for the NCAA tournament to get those kind of ratings, I think is pretty remarkable. And I'm not sure that I have an idea on exactly why all those things are happening.
And I mean, when you add in the fact that there's no Kentucky, there's no Duke, there's no North Carolina. I mean, North Carolina got eliminated in the first round, but you're having some of these normal big time programs that aren't making it too. So you might not have their fan base watching.
Well, I think there's probably a formula that CBS Sports has come up with. How many blue bloods do you need to get eyeballs on the games? But there's also people love a certain percentage of upsets and a couple of Cinderella stories to get through deep into the tournament, and maybe even to the Final Four. But I do know if you had a bunch of 11 seeds in the Final Four, they believe it would hurt their ratings. So trying to get the balance, and not that CBS or any TV network would try and manipulate who wins, God forbid. I think the perfect world for them would be 3 blue bloods and an underdog in the Final Four.
Well, I mean, you look at it this year, right now, you already have Houston and Baylor that are in. Baylor a 1 seed, Houston a 2 seed. This afternoon or this evening, you have Gonzaga and USC, Michigan and UCLA, to where Gonzaga and Michigan are those 1 seeds, and UCLA is an 11 seed, USC is a 6 seed. UCLA, I mean, they're a blue blood. UCLA they've made a couple Final Fours in the past decade, but UCLA, people hear UCLA, they think basketball. And if they make it as an 11 seed, yeah, it'll be an upset, but that still comes with some notoriety. But in the end, though, you mentioned all the upsets. I mean, you had Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16. You had Loyola, again, knocking off a 1 seed to make it to the Sweet 16. You have these upsets that happen throughout the entire tournament, but there's a very good chance we could still end up with a Final Four of 3 1 seeds and a 2 seed. And, people who watch it for their brackets might still have those intact.
Yeah, following the chalk, except when you get those unusual years. Let's say Loyola had kept moving forward, despite the reputation they got a couple of years ago by going to the Final Four. That would have been one of those upsets that kept rolling. Baylor, while not an historic basketball program, everybody's known for a couple of years that they're as good as anybody. So, and you're right, UCLA, they don't quite have the cachet they used to, but yes, they would be considered an historic blue blood without question.
So now not only are we having, down to the final few basketball games of the season, the two other big things, you're having a lot of coaching changes right now and a lot of transfers being announced. We'll get to the transfers in a second, but kind of a surprise, Shaka Smart leaves Texas to go to Marquette. In your eyes, as somebody that covers college basketball for a living, is the Marquette basketball job better than the Texas basketball job?
Yes, because you don't have the boosters climbing down all over your neck every single day and expecting championships. Look, let's face it. The Texas culture destroyed the Big 12. The Texas culture tried to dominate television with their own network. The booster and the money behind them, I think, creates a culture in which it is very difficult for any coach to survive. Regardless, the only way you could survive is to win national championships year after year after year, and I think that kind of pressure takes the edge off being at Texas. Shaka Smart's a terrific coach, and I think a very engaging and terrific individual. Can't say I know him well, but I've had a number of conversations with him. I think he had to get out of there for his own sanity. And so in the non-competitive, non-financial world, but in the emotional stability world, yeah, Marquette's a better job. Now, not saying it's a better school or a better school for student athletes. The Texas University of Texas culture in Austin. If you're an athlete at Texas, it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. But don't get me wrong, Marquette doesn't have football, but they're in there with the American Conference, kind of that in between of major conference and mid-major. In basketball, I consider it a Big Seven with the Big Five and the Big East in the American. And so Shaka will do, I think, very, very well at Marquette.
Where do you think Porter Moser ends up?
In my heart, I hope he stays at Loyola and they pay him. They pay him more and pay him competitively with the other big jobs. Indiana was crazy not to get him, but for us mid-major honks, like I admittedly am, I'm offended by your question, as if it's an automatic that someone wants to leave a mid-major. Why? He's in one of the greatest cities in the country, if not the world. They've got a terrific facility. It's his home. He wins. Why leave, Joe?
Money.
Why leave?
Money.
Why? Well, but I said that already, though. As long as Loyola can pay him commensurate with what other coaches are making. So you think Mark Few's an idiot? No, say it, Joe. Why do you hate Mark Few? You hate Mark Few. You think he's an idiot.
I think if he wins one at Gonzaga, then he goes wherever he wants. Unless he ends up just being like the Coach K. And that's what I'm saying. Maybe there's some coaches like that. Hey, Mark Few could be the Coach K of the West. And that's, I think, what he's turned into, because he's been there for as long as I can remember. He's been there. I mean, how many years has he been now?
You're dodging the question. Your Honor, can I treat this as a hostile witness? He could have gone anywhere he wanted for the last decade. He stayed in Gonzaga. So you think that's stupid?
I don't think that's stupid. If you're telling me that they're paying him what UCLA or Washington would have paid him to get him to jump to a bigger conference, to a bigger school than what Gonzaga is, if they're paying him well enough, then okay. I just don't know if Loyola's going to do that with Porter Moser. Are they?
But no, what I'm saying is reward him for his success. But how much money do you need to be happy?
True.
Ask Shaka Smart.
Yeah.
It ties right into what we were just saying.
Yeah.
If they pay you a bunch of money, but you're miserable, or even if why not be happy?
Yeah. He's talking about jumping ship, going other places. I wanted to bring up the transfer portal with you, as I don't believe, is there anybody from SLU that is in the transfer portal or left?
Not to my knowledge right now.
I didn't think there was. It was just announced earlier today. Mark Smith, who started at Illinois, the Edwardsville product, who started at Illinois, then went to Mizzou. He is going to play next year at Kansas State. So he's going to be playing with Bruce Weber next year at Kansas State. And you're just seeing more and more names every day of these guys entering the transfer portal. I want to get your thoughts on these players jumping all around.
I'll open by saying, be careful for what you wish. You will surely find it. And unintended consequences of policies and procedures are always what come back. Those are the things that always come back to bite you. Did players deserve more freedom of movement when coaches can pick up and leave whenever they want and players can't do that? Let's say, this is a bit of a fantasy, but let's say Joe Roderick is a great coach somewhere and has great players, and he gets a better job and leaves. The players were loyal to you. They signed to the program for you, but they couldn't go without having to sit out a year. We all admit, boy, there was something about that didn't seem fair. But having it wide open, you've got over 1,000 players. I'm telling you, it's going to be impossible to have program continuity anymore. And I think fans will be unhappy with this. And in the end, I think players will be. It's like a merry-go-round. If you flood the market or playing musical chairs, you flood the market, the opportunities to step up or go to a place that's a better fit. If there's one spot at school A where you want to go, Joe, but there's 3 other guys that want that same spot because they're in the transfer portal, you don't get it. Now you've got to take a second choice or a third choice or a fourth choice or go back to where you were. And I think that there is going to be it seems like a good idea on the surface, but I don't think it's good for college basketball, for the programs, and I think ultimately for players who are going to get left out, and it's going to be tough for them.
Who do you have tonight in the games? It's Gonzaga, USC. It's Michigan and UCLA.
I'm gonna take the favorites in Michigan and Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is going to win the whole thing. I think they're going to be that remarkable undefeated team that will go down as one of the all-time great teams. I think Michigan. That's a little more of wishful thinking on my part. I'm kind of rooting for them, but Houston's shown that they're very formidable, and they've got everything on what it takes to win. Sampson's put together a terrific group there. They're really going for it. It seems like they play at the highest rate possible at all levels on the court. They're a remarkable club, but I'm taking Michigan and Gonzaga.
We'll be right back to wrap things up right after this.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kelly. The real estate market is on fire and homes are selling fast. Don't lose the home of your dreams. Be sure you're working with the experts. Get pre-approved today at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Joe Roderick, Bob Ramsey here with you as Claibs making his way back from Jupiter. And also we want to thank the folks at Munganass, especially Munganass Alton Toyota. They rent cars. If you have a summer road trip coming up, they will rent you a car from Munganass Alton Toyota. And that's exactly what Claibs has done for the past 6 weeks or so now, as he went down to Florida in a Toyota Highlander. And I tell you what, this is what Jamie Burkhart, the one of the owners there, has told me about it when he told me about the program is that we're going to give you a nice new car to drive, and you're going to love it so much that when you come back from your vacation, you're going to want to buy it. And I tell you what, Claibs, every single week he has talked about that Highlander. I feel like he's getting closer and closer to buying it. So when he takes it to Jamie tomorrow and he returns it, I have a feeling that Jamie's gonna ask him, okay, what's it gonna take for you just to take this car home with you today? And I wouldn't be surprised if next week Claibs is talking about having a new Highlander.
How about that?
Yeah,
that's the way to do it.
Yeah, then and Munganass St. Louis Acura as well. Find them online, stlouisacura.com, who will be one of the presenting sponsors of Early Birds with me and Rammer every single Monday through Friday, along with Royal Banks of Missouri. Rammer, happy to have them on board too for what we're going to be doing coming up Thursday morning. And like I said, it's going to be a short 10, 15-minute podcast just to get people ready for Cardinal baseball that day.
I'm really looking forward to it. I love the game. It's been my life, and being able to kind of hash it out every morning with you and have some fun with it. I'm sure we'll get some pet topics that will be a thread throughout the season, whether it's DH or who should be hitting second and, who's the next guy in the rotation. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it as well.
Also on Thursday, too, we're introducing a newsletter for Claibs Online. It'll have just all kinds of thoughts and little things here and there, and I think you're going to contribute to it in some way as well, with just a list of everything else that we have coming up on the website all year long. Because I know, as I said, Claibs has his podcast with Keith Costas coming up. He's got the Ferrario Face-Off with Alex Ferrario talking Blues hockey that he'll be putting up a new episode of that coming up as well. We have Ask the Doctor with Dr. Rick. We have our show. We have, by the way, I'm looking forward this Friday for Weekend Joe Rammer, a full review of the movie Godzilla vs. Kong that is getting released tomorrow on HBO Max. My son and I have been looking forward to this movie for a good 2-3 months now.
Really? Well,
yes.
I hope you enjoy it.
It looks, there's nothing that's going to be Oscar worthy about it. I just want to watch two monsters fight for 2 hours.
Well, that's going to be what our morning baseball show is.
Just a Kong hitting Godzilla with a skyscraper is basically going to be what you're going to do to me anytime I bring up the DH, isn't it?
No, we'll have fun with it.
Well, Rammer, it was a pleasure to have you join us today. As I always do, whenever we talk about you and Claibs working together, I always have to bring up this picture of you and Claibs from, I don't know what year he says that was from, but probably one of the first games you guys worked together.
That's it's late 80s. I'm going to say probably 87, 88. And that's it. That is at Kiel Auditorium.
Oh,
Kiel
nice.
Auditorium, which was an awesome venue.
I never got to see a game there.
Great.
I moved down here in the summer of 97.
Oh yeah. I was gone, 8-9 years by the time you were there then.
Was it gone that long by then? In 97?
Yeah, we moved to playing at the Oakland Avenue Arena out of Kiel. When did they start? 92 maybe? Something like that. Something like that, somewhere in there, 92, 93 probably.
And then it was torn down. It was torn down after 97, right? It was up for a while before it got torn down, wasn't it?
Well, no, that's because that's where Enterprise is now, in the exact same spot.
Gotcha.
So whenever that opened, that was the time.
All right. Well, Rammer, I look forward to talking with you on Thursday. Thank you so much for filling in for us today. This has been Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. He's Bob Ramsey. I'm Joe Roderick. We'll talk to you next week, everybody.